Hello, a very good day to everyone. And in this video, me, Khang, and my friends Mukhriz are going to share with you guys about chili breeding. Hope you guys enjoy this video. First of all, before we go into chili breeding, what is chili? Chili is actually a plant classified under the family of Solanaceae and is under the genus of capsicum. And chili is just like other herbaceous plant content of dicotyledons, fruits, or broadleaf, and etc. Okay, the spiciness for chili is actually determined by the amount of capsicum organic compound content in the chili, and the more capsicum in content, the spicier the chili will be. Eventually, the spiciness of the chili is measured by SHU, which is also known as Scoville scale. And in Malaysia, there is a few variety content, which is Kulai, MC4, MC5, 11, and 12, which differently have different level of spiciness. Okay, what is plant breeding? Plant breeding is actually the process of producing a plant with a better variety by the application of genetic application to produce the desired progeny from the plants, which able to improve the plants itself, such as the yield of the plant and the quality of the fruit as well.
Thank you, Kang. Now let's move on to the reproduction part, which is the chili flower. Chili flower are bisexual flower as they consist of both male part, stamen, and female part distilled in one flower. Chili flower can come in many colors such as white, yellow, and purple depending on the variation of the chili plant. Chili flowers have many phases. The first one is flower bud. Second is half open flower. Third is a fully open flower, which is ready for pollination. And the fourth one is fertilized flower, and the last one is the development of fruit as a result of fertilization. Let's move on to the pole anatomy of the chili flower. First, we have sepal that protect the development of the flower. Then we have stamen that consists of the male part. Then we have pistil that consists of female part. And lastly, we have petal. They are bright in colors to attract pollinators such as bee. Let's go a bit detailed. The stamen or the male part have filament and anther, while the anther itself has pollen grain that contain male gamete. Pollen grain is abundant to make sure there is enough pollen for pollination and to maximize the success rate. As for the female part, the pistil part consists of stigma, style, and ovary. The ovary contain ovule, and the ovule contain a female gamete or egg. As for sexual reproduction, the male and female gamete will fuse together to form a zygote. Ovary will be developed into fruit and ovule will be developed into seed. The whole process is called double fertilization process.
Next, we will move towards the self-pollination of chili plant. For chili plant, self-pollination is carried out via the flowers, and particularly in this variety of chili plant, it contains of three types of flower, which is a flower bud, fully unopened flower, then comes toward the fully open flower, after that with the semi-open flower. For pollination process, in order to increase the success rate of the pollination process, the fully open flower is chosen to ensure the maturity of the pollen. So in order to self-pollinate, due to the flower of chili is dioecious flower, which meant by the flower contain two types of organ, including male and female reproductive organ, which aids the pollination. So in this process, a sterile brush is used to collect the pollen from the fully open flower, and then it was after the pollen was collected, then the brush was used to gently touch the stigma of the same flower or different flower on the same plant in order to carry out self-pollination. Besides that, in order to increase the success rate of pollinating the flowers, the brush contained pollen is brushed several times on the female organ, which is the stigma of the flower from the same plants, in order to ensure sufficient pollen have been stick to the stigma of the female flowers. After that, the particular pollinated flower is labeled with a labeling with names and date of the pollination to aid the record activity after this experiment. After the pollination process, the flower is required to wrap in a plastic bag or a paper bag to prevent the flower from contaminated by other pollens via vectors such as insects or wind.
As for cross-pollination, it is usually done between two different species of the same plant for desirable trait or hybrid seeds. There are a few steps in cross-pollination. First is the selection of target base parent line. Second, transplanting of the parental seedling. Third is emasculation. Emasculation is basically the removal of anther and its pollen to remove the virginity of the female flower. Emasculation may be done either early in the morning or in the previous evening. It also needs to be done before the flower open and Kelly are still covered the whole anther extema. Then peel off the petal, remove the anther using forceps, and then bag the flower. The last step or the fourth step is hybridization. First, choose a fresh flower without petal from the desirable male parent. Second, dust the pollen on the stigma of the emasculated flower using hand brush or handshake. Third, after pollination, replace the bag and label it with parent detail and the pollination date.
Next, I will share some extra information about plant breeding methods as well as their corresponding concept and mechanisms. But before the breeding mechanism, let's take a look at the advantage as well as the benefits of plant breeding, especially in chili. So from the slide, we can see that there's variety of benefits that plant breeding can provide, including increasing the yields, disease resistant, and able to increase the pungency as well as the texture and taste of the chili itself. After that, let's go towards an overview of chili breeding. So from here, from the picture, there's a total 4 classification of plant breeding. Serve different function, require different level of skills, as well as take different amount of time. One of the most common chili breeding that we can see everywhere is conventional breeding. Then comes toward the genetic modification breeding. What is conventional breeding? Okay, conventional breeding is the breeding that target based on their parents' line selection, followed by transplanting of the parent seedling, then come to emasculation of the flower during flowering season to prevent contamination of the pollination process. And for conventional breeding, it takes relatively long time, which around 8 to 10 years time. At the same time, it's very climatic and surrounding dependent, which rainy seasons and drought season will highly affecting the outcomes of the breeding. And conventional breeding does have a lot of limitation, including the vectors. Next, for genetic modification breeding, which the first and most common modification is via genome editing, which is the alteration of gene in the chili plant itself to produce more sustainable crop in the future. On the other hand, introducing new gene to the plant itself, such as bacteria and virus, to increase the disease resistance. And the other benefits of genetic modification of the chili crop itself is it takes relatively shorter times, approximately 6 to 8 years. However, genetic modification of the plant itself require higher skill sets as well as technical ability in order to carry out this genetic modification process in plant breeding.
Okay, next is the chili resistance problems and control method. First is the fusarium wilt caused by fungus known as Fusarium oxysporum. Its symptoms are yellowing of the foliage and wilting of the upper leaf, and also the whole plant wilt. A control method is to use wild resistant variety and avoid waterlogging. Second is the aphids, a type of insect known as Mysis persicale. Its symptoms are small soft-bodied insect on the underside of the leaf or stem of the plant. Its control method are to check transplant for aphid before planting and use tolerant variety. Third and last disease is mosaic, caused by virus or cucumber mosaic virus. Its symptoms are alternating light and green area of the leaf become distorted and curved. Its control method are use a wild resistant variety and remove weed around crop. In conclusion, chili breeding is defined as the genetic principle to produce better variety of chili in terms of yield, taste, and etc. Chili flower is a bisexual flower, which means they have male and female bud in one flower and have few features from flower bud to development of the fruit. Chili breeding can be done through pollination, either through self-pollination or cross-pollination. Next, there are few benefits of chili breeding, such as to have a better taste and improve disease resistance, such as aphid and mosaic virus. Conventional breeding, such as self and cross-pollination, does take longer time and they are environmental dependent. And lastly, genetic modification, such as mutation breeding and plant transgenic breeding, does take a short time but require a lot of skills. I think that's all from me and Khang. Thank you.